Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Good morning. Happy Friday. How are you doing, Austin?
Doing great, Andrew. How are you doing?
Excellent. Excellent. It's a nice day out here. We're finally getting some sun and spring is in the air. It's things are moving.
Yep, it's always a good time when you start to see the end of the winter season and moving into some happier springtime for sure.
Yes. And of course, there's still lots of chaos in the world and there's going to be moving forward. But I do suspect, and for whatever reason, and there's lots of them, we won't get into today, I think spring, summer will be positive and optimistic. And there's lots of indications that could be the case. And certainly today, we're talking about helium, and it's one of our more, rare and interesting stories that we've been covering for a number of years. And this is just more of a reminder. And, we did a report 2 years ago. Go to our website. You can download it. And that's when our first report was about this time 2 years ago. I think it was May. And we want to just do just a quick refresher, because we've been doing this lately of talking about a lot of these critical elements, metals, minerals, and whatnot, that people, even myself, we've taken for granted that, oh, we've solved this problem, or we've got this, or we've done that. Let's talk about AI. Let's talk about future kind of stuff. And it's a bit of a rude awakening and a startling realization that none of that has been solved, that there are major, massive issues that have been brewing for years. And once again, not being negative, it's just a fact of life that need restructuring, that need to be evaluated and looked at. And certainly it's not that complicated, because at the end of the day, you're talking about supply and demand. And there's a massive demand for helium that the supply, we'll get into a couple of factors that have happened just in the last couple of months that have really accelerated this demand as well. But it's like most things, is it doesn't have to be that complicated. And with helium, before I just let you kind of jump in, it's not just party balloons. And I remember when I first looked at it, I thought, why on earth would you want helium? What could it possibly be used for? And you start to see that, it's MRIs, it's a lot of healthcare. And of course, it's used in hot air balloons and whatnot. But the biggest thing is it's a high critically needed gas for coolant. And that's kind of the main way to look at this thing, whether you're talking nuclear reactors. And, you saw, on Wednesday, we were talking about uranium and nuclear and the growth there, especially in China. That requires a lot of this ultrafine helium. Helium is exceptionally more pricey or costly than natural gas as well. And, just as we see here, primary, secondary, most of it in the past, it either came from there was a reserve that the U.S. had, but it was a secondary resource that some of it they blew off and some of it they kept from oil and gas industry. So they would just have it, and they would be the primary. They're not the primary producers. They would be the secondary producers of it. Is that they would keep it and they would have a credit and they'd have some helium, they'd sell it. Not a big deal. There weren't a lot of primary producers. So we were interested to find out, and I think primary, there's only 5% of the whole market was primary producers. And it would have been a very niche market. So that was interesting for us because niche market, supply and demand problems, exceptional growth coming with the need for storage for all of these video cards that you see, not only for video games, but for all the Bitcoin mining. Also, the data storage, that's not getting smaller. I mean, cloud storage and data storage is only going to get bigger and bigger as, we saw like Moore's Law. So that's kind of the backdrop. Go to our website. You can get that report or send a message off to me or Austin. We'll send it off to you. It's free, no problem. But it's a great primer, even for today, that lets you know what we're facing. And then we'll jump into kind of some of the news just lately that's been happening that's really accelerated.
Yeah, so obviously, I'm glad you highlighted, and I'll just kind of reiterate the point that if you want to do anything on any sort of technological device, your phone, your computer, your iPad, anything, you're going to need helium involved, and people don't really clue into that. And the backdrop that you kind of set there, this was all already going on before the present situation that we've run into with Russia and the Ukraine. And the way things have escalated there, it's began to squeeze this already tight helium market even harder, and making it difficult for producers to get in and out of Russia, obviously, and increasing demand back on our side of the globe as well. So you already have that all kind of set up in place, and then you get an interesting company like Desert Mountain Energy, which comes in and has found a massive amount of resource at their wells. They're drilling. They are extremely excited about the return that they're getting on that production. And they're expecting to see that ramp up, especially on the back of the Federal Helium Reserve shutting down in September of 2022 as well. So that's going to add an even further squeeze to this market and even greater opportunity for new helium producers.
Yeah, I just want to put a little bit of a caveat. We don't know how, like, we have to be careful with the massive, what they might have or what they do have. They certainly are indicating and suggesting that it's very, very interesting what they have. And they believe that they have kind of outlined the Macaulay field. They found that structure, and they will then further define it. But it's important that we kind of just make sure, because we are going to be having production soon. It'll be coming in probably end of summer, somewhere around there. And that's part of the reason why it was awarded what do you call it, the best helium exploration and development company in North America by Canadian Business Award, which is a big deal. And to be acknowledged for that. And that's also because of how they're doing this. It's critical, because I know, and we'll do a show on ESG and everything, because there's lots of good and bad with it. Believe me, like I kind of focus on the good with it, because the good parts are wonderful, and it shows the strength and the desire by management to want to work to find the best environmental solutions, which is most people I talk to. They want that. And they want to also do right by the communities involved and the stakeholders involved and whatnot. So the mining's had that for years. They've had a very, very strong presence in that field, and that's different than from what you're hearing a lot of the ESG talk that's coming out now more and more. And I want to mention that because it's part of that award, is that recognition of really adhering to standards that not only are expected today, but we want to see moving forward, because it is a critical gas. It's going to be absolutely needed. And it's not being fear driven. And on top of that, because and this happens, we see this happen with lithium companies, with gold companies, is that you have court Flagstaff took Desert Mountain Energy to court, and just today, I think 4 hours ago, the Arizona Appellate Court ruled unanimously in favor of Desert Mountain Energy, and they vacate the Superior Court order, which is a huge win, which is also sent the stock running for sure.
Yeah.
Because that opens up well 3, and we'll get to start talking about well 3 soon. And that's an amazing kind of situation to be in, because we've got this field now being mapped out. They have a sense there, because they use their mass spectrometers. They have internally a sense of what they're dealing with, and these are professionals. They can't put those numbers out, but they can internally look and have a good idea what they have. When they can't put those numbers out is when they get the final numbers, they get the assays, and they get everything all together, and they put that whole package together. That's when the market will know for sure what we're dealing with. But internally, and they can't say anything, but I suspect they're looking at it and going, this looks attractive. This is good. And whenever they can put out the actual numbers and the data, which I'm going to guess is probably close to when they actually get production going. When the plant is up, it's completed. They're completing these wells now, and the shutting and getting them prepped about the next 3 weeks or so. This is all going to happen in a hurry. We're getting into the stage now where the stock is getting a lot of attention, and it's going to be very interesting spring, summer leading up to that.
It is for sure. And a couple things to note on that. Number one, you talked about ESG. And that's just something really important to highlight about one of the perks of doing business in a mining friendly jurisdiction and in a Western jurisdiction is you're already going to have a lot of that stuff in place. You're already going to be required to adhere to a high level of standards to begin with. It's the reason, when anyone talks about oil and gas and people in Alberta here, we get very sensitive. We say, hey, we've got the safest, the cleanest, the most environmentally friendly, the most socially friendly oil and gas in the world. So it already has that reputation. So that's a perk of doing business in a friendly jurisdiction. And then obviously as well, you're talking about them ramping up the facility, getting that ready. They're already they have the sufficient capital in place to be able to complete these projects as well, which is another reason that it becomes so attractive.
Yes. And then just because obviously it's no surprise we love Desert Mountain Energy, but because if you look at some of the other players and you go, okay, well, who's in this space? You go, well, Exxon. All right. Well, a lot of people are going to have a hard time with that because they're like, I don't want to buy an oil and gas company, and they think they can't or they shouldn't, or it's such a big player in the space. You're not really just buying the helium part, right? You're buying a whole business with lots of different units. So you're looking at Rasgas, which is also out of Qatar, Lind, which is Australian, Air Products, Praxair, which people might know, which is US, Air Liquide, which I believe is headquartered in Paris, France. And of course, Gazprom, which I think you'll give us a little update on that, which is Russia. And that's significant because this, unlike we've been talking about Russia and Ukraine, Belarus, this region is responsible not only for food, which we've talked about with Brian, we've talked about other shows on how serious that is. This we're also talking about one of a key plant, that Gazprom plant for helium has shut down.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with Gazprom as well is as they've been kind of able to continue exporting gas to Europe and India, they've been accepting euros as payment, and Putin's now kind of come in and cracked down and said, hey, we're actually going to have to start only taking the Russian ruble for this. Obviously, that's a calculated move by Putin. He's doing the same thing for any of their gas exports. He's saying it's going to have to be in rubles because for anyone who hasn't been paying attention, the ruble has been crushed into oblivion over the past couple of weeks. So it's a move from his position to say, I've got to strengthen our domestic currency somehow. This is probably one of the very limited options I have to be able to do that. But that's going to cause a very interesting situation. I think he's given Gazprom an additional 4 days, which would take us into early next week, to be able to figure out how they can take payment in rubles from unfriendly countries, as he put it.
Yes.
But it's going to be a very interesting situation to keep your eyes on as it continues to develop.
Yeah, so we have the whole Russia-Ukraine situation, which adds another level or flavor to the whole issue. But Russia has China, and China is building out 48 nuclear reactors. They're going to need a ton of helium. So you go, okay, they can sell to Russia. But it still leaves the West to go, well, okay, where are we getting ours from? And also, before this whole crisis with the war in Ukraine, Gazprom, their helium plant was taken offline. So there was a fire there, and it's out for like a year to 18 months regardless. So before the whole war even happened, there was going to be a further problem with helium demand and supply anyways. So this has kind of shifted things to not quite the panic, obviously, that you have with what you're going to start hearing this summer about food. Because food is the number one. Food and shelter. If you can't provide that, there's some great shows and great analysis done on food, say with the Arab Spring, and in regards to what causes the first cause of an uprising is if you can't feed your people. And it was even yesterday, Biden went on TV and said, yes, food shortage is going to be a problem. So he's even acknowledged that. Now, we'll leave food alone because we'll be coming back to it again, but these are the situations where we have seen that this was going to happen and have picked companies that have done exceptionally well. Also in the food, Nutrien and Verde have gone through the roof. So we're very pleased with that. But with Desert Mountain, we saw this happening, the shortage, and also this misunderstanding that everyone in the world can, join together as one because we're all the same. This lunatic idea that you hear preached a lot in the West. I never have bought it because I read history. and knew that there was going to be issues with all of this. And especially when you have countries that we don't necessarily have the best relationship with that are stockpiling resources. That's always a good indicator of there's trouble brewing. And that's a whole other show unto itself. Mm-hmm. But for us, that's a big indicator. And someone like a Ray Dalio, Stanley Druckenmiller, even Warren Buffett, they point out when there's certain events start to happen, better start paying attention. And now I think if people are watching the markets and they're watching the news, you're hearing a lot more about critical metals, about critical minerals, about food supply and supply chain issues. These are things we've been talking about for years. So it's starting to happen. And although I believe this summer and spring, we're going to do well, there's also going to be lots of news coming out that's very disturbing. And listen, if you're trying to make money, you're looking for supply demand problems, you're looking for inefficient markets, and you're looking for companies that have teams and projects that can excel in any environment. And it doesn't matter if there's difficulty here, there, anywhere. There's going to be need for helium. There's going to be need for food. And Desert Mountain is sitting in a driver's seat right now where there's a lot of mystery, and they would feel, I mean, they seem confident every time I talk to them with their own internal models, with what they've got, they think they've got. And I suspect when they release that, whenever they turn on the production, my hope certainly is that it's going to start running. And in between that period of time, I'm sure there's a million phone calls to find out whether it's major players out there or even end users, because in their timeline or milestones, they're saying they're going to start announcing some contracts, whoever it's worth, because once again, remember, they're going to be vertically integrated right from the ground, right to selling to their end user. That's very different than other models of just we're shipping or we've got an offtake agreement with someone. They're gonna own that whole chain, which is a lot of profit. And it's a lot of hard work for years and years and years to get to this point that Robert and the team have done an outstanding job. And I think we're starting to see the market come to terms and start to understand, okay, the bigger picture is starting to unfold, and pretty exciting for this space.
Yeah, and that's highlighted by, and you'll get to it here in this article that we have pulled up. There's a great section talking about insiders that are buying the stock, and it's very clear to see that the experienced management team that these guys have, it's an absolutely loaded board of directors and stuff. But when you see a company where you have that level of buy-in from the directors and everyone involved, and they're continually buying more stock, in some cases even being on, you call it a buying spree of stock, that's very encouraging, and it shows belief in the project right from that core team, which is always important.
Yes. Now, and we're showing you some different other articles, and we've got like friends of mine as well that are big into this space. I think we've talked about Ellis Martin at his podcast. So Ellis does some great interviews as well in regards to Desert Mountain. Check him out on YouTube. So if you put in Ellis Martin and Desert Mountain Energy in YouTube, Ellis is outstanding. He's been in the space for decades. He knows his stuff, and he's also a big fan of Desert Mountain Energy, and it's wonderful that he's on board. Also, my friend in New York, Peter Epstein, who's got Epstein Research, his article, if we could maybe pull that up. Peter's great. He's a smart CFA guy. He's been writing about helium and Desert Mountain as well. His work is outstanding, and we like to put that up too because not only, I mean, they're friends of mine, but their work is great. You can go right to their site and read it. I would encourage you to do so. And it also just kind of gives further, not that, credibility is the word, but kind of kudos that there's other people out there that have acknowledged and seen that this is happening. And especially when they're in the US, to open up that US market. Very exciting, very exciting. So, once again, that's Ellis Martin and Peter Epstein. Check them out. I think also Peter also covers phosphate as well. So he's written about Arion phosphate as well, which is wonderful. We have very like-minded companies that we like, which is handy, which is great. Not to get too much the story of how we met and whatnot, but it was at Mines and Money in New York a couple of years ago and hit it off. I'm always happy to share other people's work that I really like and appreciate. And both smart guys. And, once again, take a look at their stuff. It's great to hear someone else's kind of angle and point of view of what they and why they like the company as well. So, and once again, helium, there's lots of helium plays, and there's other helium companies that we kind of like, but it's just for everything it's got, Desert Mountain to me is just the one, right? And
it's the cream of the crop. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Because I like that whole vertically integrated approach. And I've been saying it when it pulled back, I was still excited about it. And, you know, I can't talk about prices, and I can't, you know, forecast, and I can't do any of that type of stuff. But I just, you know, I wish I was able to have bought more at the $2, $2.50 range when I could have. But you know, we try not to talk, you know, predict the future in that way too much with certainty. And I'm not allowed to say any price points, but I'm very optimistic about this company and where it's going. They're really in the driver's seat. And you've got a situation where even major players know we need a supply. And oh boy, luckily, do we have one in the US? Like that's a dream situation for, and I mean, and one of the things that they have announced already is they've got a contract with the US government. So that's always a great buyer when you know that they're like, yes, we want, you know, so that's a good kind of ace up their sleeve, regardless of whoever else that they announce that they have contracts with.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I'll just do a little shameless self-promotion for ourselves here as well. You brought up that Peter Epstein article. If anyone was signed up to our newsletter, free subscriber newsletter, you would have gotten that article, linked to it on Tuesday morning. You would have been able to see it. And I won't tell you what Desert Mountain Energy was at on Tuesday morning, but let's just say the stock is up from that point today. So who knows? It always interesting information in those weekly email blasts. If you're not signed up for them, I encourage you to put yourself on the mailing list.
Well, also for the subscribers for our newsletter, the actual newsletter, not the weekly ones, but the bigger ones. So when did that one went out? What, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, just
so that was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where Desert Mountain was a highlight, and
I believe they're the first company mentioned in it, actually.
Yeah, if maybe we could pull up a chart of DME, and we can just kind of look back a month ago and see what that chart looks like. Just because I won't say the numbers, I'm not really allowed to, but we can kind of see what the chart looks like from, say, a month back.
It's up by a percentage that starts with a F and ends with an IFTY.
Yeah, so 50. So it's up 50% in the month. So yeah, I wish that could happen all the time. And I'm not saying it's going to stay there forever, but that's certainly, when we look back there, a lot of events in a short period of time have come to fruition. There's lots more news that's positive that's coming because they have that field outlined. They're going to define it. They're waiting on assay reports. They seem very optimistic. They've got lots of ads out there on different sources, on TV and everything else, because I've had people call and go, hey, I just saw Robert on TV. And they're going to have production soon. And that's what every analyst loves. I mean, I like this kind of space where you get to the numbers part, but as soon as you get to the numbers, then the analysis work really comes into fruition, and you know, okay, now we're dealing with the numbers. That's going to attract a lot of people once they go, here's our assay results, here's the data, here's our production, here's our numbers. Then this thing starts running.
Yeah,
I think.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I think I mean, I could yap all day long about this. And I mean, it's very exciting, not only because the stock is doing well, but to find these like anomalies in the sector that, you know, who cares? Like, to find helium, what a lucky kind of thing. To find phosphate, you know, Aryan phosphate, these kind of companies, and fertilizer, and see what they've done in a short period of time, and to realize that you don't have to be looking at the most complex. How does crypto work? Or how does AI work? How does I know this? You don't have to focus on any of that right now. Right now, we need to focus on the supply chain. How are we getting food to people? How's food even made? And answering these basic questions to look and see, holy smokes, this is not solved. We're not ready for what's the changes that are happening, and who are the people and companies that are going to stand to profit and that have a chance of accommodating and moving fast in this ever-changing world. And finding those things out is not only testing the hypothesis and thesis we had that's correct moving forward. It's also, it's just it's showing, you know, that that what we kind of predicted is happening. And if you follow that, you're going to be ahead of the curve. If you're not, if you're getting left behind, you're going to get left behind. And just one comment here from Alex Barr. Oh, got my DME at 20 cents. Oh, excellent, Alex. Yes. I know. I love it. I
Wonderful.
love it. Well,
yeah.
There's not a lot of people back in there. I know a bunch, and they're friends of mine. I think we got in very early. I think my first article, I think it was at 27 cents. But yeah, I mean, that's outstanding. And then, hey, there's people that bought in just at over $3, $4 that would have been upset, a little bit mad like 6, 7, 8 months ago. But I just made sure to come on here and say, listen, don't just hang in there. Just hang in there. Anyways, congratulations, Alex. That's great. We love to hear that. Definitely, we're looking forward to this spring and summer as more news. And whenever we can get Robert or Don Mosier on, we will. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Great story, and we'll continue to keep an eye on it because it's certainly not done yet.
No, excellent. All right, well, Austin, have a great weekend, and everyone enjoy your weekend. Make sure you get out and enjoy it, and blessings to everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.